What's up, y'all, and welcome into today's episode. I'm so glad that you are here. I'm just going to let you guys in on a secret. I think this might be my favorite episode we have recorded this year. We had so much fun today. Father Anthony and I played Life Verse, brought back that old game, and we decided what the Life Verse for the show was going to be. Then I revealed probably one of my hottest takes in a long time that I've been holding in for quite some time. And then we pulled what 100% is my favorite prank we've ever played on Father Anthony. We have 2 more videos of him messing up in Mass. My goodness, the one blessing that came out of this whole COVID thing is online Masses and getting to capture Father Anthony making mistakes live at Mass. It's so great. I hope you enjoy today's show. If you do, hit subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts or on YouTube. Enjoy. What's up? And welcome to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Sroll. That is Father Anthony Sciarappa. Hello, Padre. How are you?
Hello, Taylor. I am doing great. How are you?
Oh, just wonderful. About an hour ago, I had literally nothing to say for this show. It's just been a normal couple of weeks. I mean, the cool thing when my son got his first communion, that's exciting, but that's the story. That was all of it. I couldn't milk a whole segment out of it. It was good. We enjoyed it. Our family was in town. But all I've been doing ever since track season ended is catching up on work stuff. So nobody wants to hear oh, you'll never guess what I did. I edited audio for 10 hours and it was exhilarating. And I played a crossword while I did it. Hooray! That's the show. that's all I had. So I sat down and I was like, I haven't tweeted anything interesting. I haven't done anything interesting. I've just been working. So I was like, I don't have anything to do. I'm like, well, and usually when we do that, trade secret, it's like, we're just going to pull out all these, that's what the segments are for. So cluing you guys in, maybe you know this, maybe you don't. Anytime we do a built-in segment, it's because I don't have anything else to say. Well, I thought we were just going to do 3 games today because I had nothing. And then all I did was sit down for 20 minutes. And now I have 2 shows worth of content. So apparently I need to sit still more often and think because I haven't been doing that at all.
When you sit down and think about things, you think about things to say. That's so weird.
Man, if only I had some quiet time in my life. Oh, well. So one of these ideas that I had before I had any ideas was you know what? A game we haven't played in a long time. We have not played Life Verse, one of my favorite segments that we've done, because God has given me a tremendous gift where if somebody has a problem or if they just want their life verse, a verse that defines them, God has given me the special grace to completely open the Bible at random, and God shows me the verse that is built specifically for them in their life. And this is mostly a joke, but it's actually unreal how many times it actually fits for people.
It's a little eerie how often you actually make it work.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's sometimes it's the gift of I'm good at thinking on the fly and I can make it make sense. Other times there is some part, every lie has some reality to it. And every now and then, God's just hey, here's a verse about somebody grieving through loss after they just lost somebody in their life. It's wow, this is actually amazing. Yeah. There are hundreds of thousands of verses in the Bible, and I just happened to find the one that made a bunch of sense. So I was like, well, let's just play Life Verse randomly. So usually what we do is we just pick a person, and we're like, okay, this is who we're picking the Life Verse for. Well, I was like, well, we're on episode 240 today.
Woo!
So I had the great idea. We were just going to play Life Verse 240, where we were just going to be okay, you have to open up a Bible to a random book, chapter 2, verse 40, and that was going to be the life verse for the show up until this point. Grand idea. Do you see any problems with it?
There's not a lot of 40s as far as verses go.
Yeah, there are 3 books in the entire Bible that have chapter 2, verse 40.
Yeah, okay.
So what this segment was going to be at the beginning of me thinking about the show was I was going to let you pick the book, and you'll be like, Ezekiel, and I'll go to it and be like, dang it, there's not a verse 40. All right, pick another one. That was a fluke. And then, okay, go to Psalms. Psalms has long chapters. Nope, not one in chapter 2. So we would have gone through all of these books. So finally, I was just like, you know what? I don't need to spend time in my Bible. I can just Google it. So I just Googled books that have chapter 2, verse 40, and there are 3 of them.
That's the fun fact for the day.
2 of them were written by the same person,
Okay.
Luke and Acts.
Okay, yeah.
So he's very long-winded when he starts his stories, is what we learned about old Lucas. The other one is Daniel. So how we are going to start this is I have pulled them up because I realized halfway, I do this all the time. I'm like, I have this great idea. And then I realize 30 seconds later, that's a real dumb idea. So I have to fix it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start in chronological order. So I see you flipping open your Bible to the book of Daniel. Let's see. We only have 18 minutes left, priest. Like, you got to pick it up a little bit.
Well, it's your job to edit stuff.
No, I don't edit this show. I edit everybody else's. Why would I edit this one? I think it's
Switch
very
back to my
obvious. Oh my gosh, you gave up on the Bible and you're looking it up on your phone?
I did.
You made me wait to start recording so you could go get your Bible.
Yep.
And now you can't find the book of Daniel?
Correct. We'll do the King James version. That's fun.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So what we're going to do is there are 3 240s. Chapter 2, verse 40 in the entire Bible. The book of Daniel, the book of Luke, and the book of Acts. So what I'm going to do is, I was going to read them to you, but if you have the King James, you can go ahead and start us off. And you are going to help me decide which of these verses has been the life verse for this show through the first 240 episodes. And we'll see if we want to keep it moving forward.
Okay, Daniel, chapter 2, verse 40, the King James version, because we feel fancy today. And the 4th kingdom shall be as strong as iron. For as much as iron breaketh in pieces, and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all things, shall it break in pieces and bruise.
I now just want to do an entire show speaking like that. From henceforth we shall talketh as the old Englishman dideth.
All right. Do I go on to Luke?
No. We have to talk about this one.
Okay.
What do you think? What do you think? Like, do you think this fits as a life verse for the show's first 240 episodes?
So, is this podcast as strong as iron? Well, 240 episodes, that's no joke in podcast land. So it seems like that. Have you conquered the podcast charts like iron subdueth all things? No.
Wait. There are things that you don't know.
Okay.
There are things that you don't know. I've tweeted about it a couple of times.
Yeah.
But am I in the top 100 in the American charts? No.
Okay.
But have you seen my tweets about how good this show does in other countries?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like Indonesia, we were like the top 12 Christian podcast in the I was going to say in the world, but in all of Indonesia. I think they only have 12 podcasts allowed over there, but whatever. Like Ethiopia, we were crushing in Ethiopia. We are like a top 100 podcast in Christian land in many other countries, just not this one. And most of them don't speak English, and I think they just see Forte and Catholic, and Forte is a word in their language, so they just think it's for them, and then they realized very quickly that it's not.
Very nice. So maybe it does work, because you're going to sneak up on the podcast charts by just conquering all these other countries, and slowly you'll get the bigger and bigger ones, and like iron, you will subdueth all things, and there
will declare
only be
war on the United States.
Yes, that's good.
Here's what I think. It says there will be a 4th kingdom. If you think back, like now everybody and their mom has a podcast. There are actually some podcasts that is the host and their mom are the 2 people on the show. So that's not just a joke. That was actually quite factual. Mm-hmm. So, but back in the day, like I was maybe 4th, but closer to 4th than 100th, like your show.
Yes.
I was closer to the 4th of like good Catholic podcast around.
Sure.
And then apparently I made it look really easy, and everybody else was like, "Oh, I can do this. That guy's dumb."
And a lot of them were right. More of them were wrong, but a lot of them were right.
No, nobody has created a show better than this after. Do they have more listens? Yes. That's because they have shilled out for people on social media. That's a whole other thing. But I would say that for the Forte Catholic podcast is the 4th kingdom. It's strong as iron. And this, like, people who have listened to the show know that I was a sprinter. I was good at like sprinting for very fast for very short distances. But when it comes to this show, it's all about the long game. So many other kingdoms, Catholic podcasts, have risen, and they have gone to the heights, but they have fallen, like the great Roman Empire.
Yes.
That wasn't a dig at the Roman Circus podcast, but maybe it was. But they have risen and fallen, and I'm still here, baby.
All right. I think this one's pretty good.
Okay. So now we're going to go to the book of Luke. Do you know where that is in your Bible?
Yes. It's here on my phone. All right. Once again, the King James Version. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things that they had heard and seen, as it was told unto them.
100% that's the wrong verse.
Yeah, that's verse 20. What did I do that for?
I knew that at some point. I just knew it. I wish I would have said it earlier when you didn't hear it. I knew that of these 3 books, you were going to get the verse wrong when the entire thing is based off of 240. I just knew it going in.
Yep. Okay,
right,
let's try this again.
I was like, there's no way the King James translation's that wrong.
Okay. And the child grew and waxed strong in spirit, filled with wisdom. Yes, waxed to increase.
As opposed to no waxing involved with this show.
Yes, wax as opposed to wane. Which is the opposite of waxed. Excuse me, I'm trying to read the Bible. And the child grew.
No, you're not. You're reading off your phone.
Yes, which is the Space Bible, King James Version. And the child grew, rock strong in spirit, filled with wisdom.
Strong and waxed. This is ridiculous.
Yes. And the grace of God was upon him. Do you want to read your version?
I would love to, because I can't. All I could think about was like Bruce Wayne getting waxed, because you said wax Wayne, and I was very, very confused. And the child grew and became strong. He was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was on him. Now, this verse, I've actually talked about this verse quite a bit. Do you know, why is this verse actually quite important in the Gospels?
Well, I mean, it's important because it shows that Christ in his humanity grew like a human being. He didn't. This gets into the. I don't know how to get into this without getting into the weeds about it.
Okay.
Theologically, do you want to do that?
I've got a weed whacker. I could just cut you off if I need to.
Okay, fine. So Christ is fully human and fully divine. He knows everything he's going to need to know for his mission. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, mean that, as a baby, Jesus knew what E equals MC squared means.
Yeah, because Einstein hadn't been born yet.
Right. Now, of course, Christ in his divinity, he knows all things, but being both a human and divine nature, he grew
now
like
I'm just picturing
being.
God the Father with Einstein 2,000 years later. Wow, I didn't even think of that. Good job.
Yeah. So, Jesus learned the Torah. Jesus learned carpentry. He grew in wisdom. He grew in his relationship with the Father throughout his humanity. He always has this intimate connection with the Father, but it's important to make sure that we understand Jesus is fully human and fully divine. That's a very important verse to understand that.
Yeah, that's not what I was going for at all.
That's why. Yeah. Okay. Where were you gonna go? Why is this important, Taylor?
But what I loved, I just loved everything that you said about that, because it sounded just as ridiculous as the King James version. But now I'm picturing, I wonder if in Jesus's time, was there a translation of the Torah that was from 600 years earlier, and it was the King James version, the King Absalom version of the Torah, and they're just
version.
thou ist needeth, in old Aramaic or something.
Yeah,
I just think that'd be just picturing Jesus reading his modern equivalent of the King James Bible made me really happy. So I'm glad we went down that rabbit hole, and we're cutting down all that grass. So the reason this verse is so important, you started reading the wrong verse, which was the end of Jesus as a literal baby, born, within days of him being born. Then we get this verse, which is the only verse. There's one other story, the story of Jesus getting lost in the temple. And then this story encompasses his entire childhood, his entire teenage years, and his entire 20s, because we don't hear from him again until he turns 30. So I actually think this verse is kind of good because, everybody on this show has watched me grow up from like mid-20s to 30s. And in 2 years, I'll be 33 and be crucified. I mean, it's pretty much the same story. So I love it. The child grew and became strong. So he got bigger physically, which I have done in the bad ways. And then I've gotten stronger. That's the gotten bigger good way. And he was filled with wisdom. So I have grown in wisdom. Now, you could also say I'm still childish and childlike because I'm not quite to the point where Jesus got yet. And the grace of God was there. We've already said that like life verse works, so grace works every now and then for me.
Yes.
So I think this is actually a pretty good one for me.
Okay. All right, let's see if I can find the right verse for Acts of the Apostles here. I'm pretty sure that we're good. Okay, King James Version. Here we go. And with many other words did he testify and exhort, saying, "Save yourselves from this untoward generation."
Untoward? Mine says corrupt, but untoward is hilarious.
Untoward. How untoward of you.
I just don't get it. So mine says, with many other words he warned them, and he pleaded with them, "Save yourselves from this corrupt generation." What do you think this means for this show?
Oh, I think that's someone not recommending this podcast. And you and your co-host and I, we are the untoward, corrupt generation. Save yourself! Don't listen to the podcast.
Did you listen to the episode yet? Where I texted you about the bad review that I got. This sounds like the bad review that I got just a couple of weeks ago. I am the corrupt generation, but I would like to flip it on its head, and I think that this podcast is helping people from the corrupt generation of the people like the person that was giving me that review.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We're trying to bring something joyful and Catholic, and we want everybody to have a good experience with something Catholic and maybe learn something along the way. That's our goal, and I think we're doing it. So we've got Daniel. That was all about being the fourth kingdom, strong as iron. We've got Luke, which I'm not divine and human. That wasn't the point. But about growth and growing up right in front of people's eyes. I grew up in front of people's eyes. Jesus just hid for most of his life. What a waste, right?
I mean, he's gonna have a very busy 3 years. Okay, he's allowed to chill for like 30.
It's just like a guy running the mile and just like walking for 3 laps, but then in the last lap he sprints so fast that he actually wins the race.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like that's what Jesus did with his life.
Yeah, I mean it worked.
Well, that's it. He sprinted the first 100. He had a good beginning.
Right, and
then he ran away from his parents, so we know that he was pretty. Maybe in the second lap, he was a little quick for one point because he had to run away from his parents.
No.
How crazy is that? That like we have 2 stories about his childhood. One is about him growing better, and the other one's about running away from home. I love it so much.
Yeah. No. On the second lap, it wasn't they ran fast; is that everyone looked at the track and they couldn't find him. Like, where did Jesus go?
He's so slow, we can't see him. He's disappeared because we can't see him.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the Daniel one, we got the Luke one, and then the Acts, save yourselves from this corrupt generation. Which one do you think is the life verse for the last 240 episodes of this podcast?
Mm-hmm. First of all, once again, weird that they all kind of work. I'm partial to the first one because it sounds very strong and cool. But the thing is, after your explanation of the last one, that's what I'm leaning towards. There's a lot of like weird stuff out there as far as Catholic media is concerned, and also just a lot of people who can't be joyful about the faith. And this whole thing that we're a part of is about spreading the joy of the gospel in a human way, acknowledging who Jesus is and how he really works in our lives, and to stay away from all the other stuff that's either that's bad. So I'm kind of leaning towards the third one.
Well, that's fine. I'm not going to argue with you. I like all 3 of them, and I was going to let you pick. So now the question is, do you think it should be the life verse for the next 240, or should we do this again in a few months to check in?
You know what? I don't want to plan for the future. As we've learned, the future is very unpredictable. So I think this will be we'll pencil this one in for the next 240.
Well, 240 from now, I won't have anything to say. And 30 minutes before we record, I'll be like, you know what? We should probably do life first.
Perfect.
And then we'll get it. It'll be 480, and I don't think there's any book in the Bible. So by that point, we'll be just completely gone from the Bible and be one of the untoward people.
Yes.
Okay, so the last thing I want to say here, while we're on the topic of the Bible, that concludes our life verse. So the show's life verse is Acts chapter 2, verse what?
40.
Not 20, verse 40.
Not 20.
So I was thinking. So we heard two things from Luke, the Gospel of Luke, and then the Acts of the Apostles. A lot of times with Luke, like it's attributed that Luke wrote it. When it comes to the Gospel of Mark, a lot of people believe, like I've heard this a lot, that a lot of people believe that like it was Peter helping. It was Peter's story from Peter's perspective. Peter was helping to kind of dictate it to Mark, and Mark was helping to write it.
Yeah.
One thing, like I actually took a class on the Gospel of John when I was an undergrad, and I loved it. And I've never heard this theory until just a couple of weeks ago. I was editing a podcast that brought this up, but how John and the Johannine community, like the community that was around him after Jesus left, like the community that built up around him as the apostle, they all kind of helped write it, because a lot of people think that the gospel wasn't in its final form, like, it didn't go Super Saiyan until after St. John had passed away. Yeah. So they kind of helped edit and all these things. So like I knew that there was like a community kind of helping with this story, editing, writing, and all these things, right? That doesn't take anything away from that the Holy Spirit was involved in this process, but they brought this up where we know that after during the crucifixion, Jesus looks at Mary and says, "Behold, this is your son," and he looks at John and says, "Behold, this is your mother." So Mary would have been like living with John.
Yeah. Like
John would have been taking care of her as his mother. And so she would have been part of this community until she got floated up into heaven.
Yes.
So this idea, John is so different. It's like the most like quote unquote spiritual like of the four gospels. And there was this idea that like, do you think Mary helped with some of the stories or some of the editing or like some helping out? Like, have you ever heard that before? I found it fascinating as a possibility.
Yeah, it's interesting because normally when you hear about Mary's influence on the Bible, a lot of people point to Luke, because how did Luke know those stories about Jesus as a baby? And the idea is that Luke went around collecting all these stories to write the gospel. There's a good chance he interviewed Mary for this sort of stuff, or people who were close to Mary. So that's the more well-known one.
He asked her to be on his podcast.
Yeah. Special guest today, Mary ever virgin.
Not the other Mary.
Not the other Mary. Mary, wife of Clopas, or Mary
or the
Magdalene.
Other Mary, or the other Mary. We've got married Mary.
Yes. So,
shackles on my feet so I can dance. That joke is for like 3 people, and they are dying laughing right now. Okay, go on.
I'm glad for them. So that's what we normally hear about Mary's influence. But the thing with John's interesting because for a long time, biblical scholars figure that because John seemed to be more spiritual, that he wasn't so much focused on because his timeline's different than the other gospels. But after more and more research, a lot of scholars have come around to think, wait, actually, John's timeline might be the more historically accurate one. And if you think that that's true, then that makes it all the more interesting. Because just like a mom knows all the important days in her son's or daughter's life, having Mary there, be like, no, this is when this happened. Because she, it seems clear from the Gospels that she
this
did
is when I lost God.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, why not? It seems like it makes sense.
I think it's fascinating. John's always been my favorite gospel. So I think, like honestly, I've been thinking about it a lot the last couple of days. Be like, that's actually really cool. Just thinking about the possibility. Do we know that it happened? Absolutely not. But just thinking about the possibility that Mary could have influenced one of the gospels, because she would have been one of the leaders that would have been looked up to. I just think that was really cool. But of course, we have to take the holy point, and I have to ask a few questions now.
Okay.
If we can safely assume that Mary had some influence on the Gospel of John, do you think she wrote out her husband's words? Like, do you think that John was like, oh, and then Joseph said this, and she's like, let's take those out?
Oh my gosh.
They're like, because like everybody now is like, oh, Joseph didn't say anything. And everybody back then is like, Joseph never shut up. And we had to take him out.
It's like, great guy, but he just talked a lot. A lot of it didn't make sense. So just leave that out. It's just not great storytelling. Love the guy. Love him. Great.
He spoke in the old King Absalom dialect.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not good storytelling. You have to just don't worry. He wouldn't mind. He wouldn't mind.
It's just whether Mary's involved or not. Just thinking about like he doesn't have any line in any four of the Gospels, so this got me thinking about like the people who were writing the Gospels and like editing the Gospels. Be like, you know what? The most important guy in human history, his dad was around. What did he say? Let's not talk about that. Like it seems like such a strange editing choice. All right, so we have our life verse. I have asked my questions about Mary and her possible helping with the Gospel of John, and poke some fun at the guy whose year we celebrate today. So I think it was a pretty successful segment. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. If you guys are not subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, you are missing out. We have full-length episodes of this podcast that you are listening to right now, but we also have all kinds of other stuff. Talks, music, YouTube exclusives. This week, after the segment you just heard, Father Anthony and I talked and riffed for about another 3 minutes about St. Joseph, exclusive over on our YouTube channel. So go subscribe today, youtube.com/Forte Catholic. We are trying to climb our way to 1,000 subscribers, so that is a great way for you to help us out for free, just hitting the subscribe button at youtube.com/Forte Catholic. Do it, please, for me. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Stroll, and that is a strange-looking priest named Father Anthony. Father Anthony, there's this thing, mostly on the internet, that everybody gets outraged by. Like, anytime anyone does something good, they're like, that's virtue signaling. So, you've heard this term, virtue signaling, yes?
I have.
Okay, for those who might not live on the internet, like you and I, what is your thoughts? What is your thoughts on virtue signaling?
Yeah. So virtue signaling, at least how it's like derided is, let's say that Taylor posts a video of him punting a kitten across a football field. And I can't do anything to fix the situation. It's already been done.
Viral.
Yeah, and Taylor punted a small kitten across a football field, right? I can't change anything. I can't make it better. But what I can do is say, well, that was wrong. And I do so in kind of a performative way that makes the whole situation more about me than it does the injustice that was done to the poor kitty cat.
Was it an injustice? Cats always land on their feet. I don't think I did anything wrong.
Yeah, maybe the cat even had fun. But let's just assume the cat didn't feel like being punted that day.
The bad man punted Baxter.
So that's usually how people think of it. It's like, you're making the situation more about how you want to make yourself sound good in the face of a bad situation.
You are signaling a virtue
that you are virtuous,
that you want other people to follow, right? Or like the negative that you signaling that you are virtuous, right?
Right.
So there are these kind of two meanings.
Yeah.
So I went and looked on Wikipedia because that's where you learn everything. Mm-hmm. Virtue signaling is the action or practice of publicly expressing opinions. Okay, that's nothing wrong with that.
That's all the internet. Yeah.
That's everything I do.
Yeah.
Publicly expressing opinions or sentiments intended to demonstrate one's good character or the moral correctness of one's position on a particular issue. I'm going to read it again because I want to tell you, I want you to tell me what the problem is with this definition of virtue signaling.
Okay.
The action or practice of publicly expressing opinions or sentiments intended to demonstrate one's good character or the moral correctness of one's position on a particular issue. Where's there a problem here?
I don't know if I'm jumping ahead of you, but like sometimes it's good to say virtuous things.
You are jumping ahead. I need my weed whacker.
I don't see what's wrong with that.
Exactly. That's my point. There's nothing wrong with this. There's absolutely. Is it bad to practice to publicly express your opinions? No, unless they're very, very bad opinions. Like, hello, I like murder and I enjoy murder. Like, there are obvious exceptions.
Yes.
You can't do that. But publicly expressing your opinions kind of sounds like evangelization. Like, hey, I enjoy this thing called Jesus and life in the church.
Yes.
I want to express that. Is that wrong? No. Or to demonstrate one's good character. Okay, this is the one place you can kind of push back. It's like, could this lead to pride? Yes. Is it always bad? No, it's not. And I'm going to prove this. St. Paul in the old Bible that is inspired by the Holy Spirit, God's writ. This is what Paul says in Philippians chapter 2, verse 40.
No.
Exactly. Took
me a second, but I was like, wait a...
Philippians chapter 3, verse 17. Join with others in being imitators of me. This is Paul writing this, not Jesus. Join with others in being imitators of me, brothers, and observe those who thus conduct themselves according to the model that you have in us, meaning Paul and like his companions, right?
Yeah.
That is virtue signaling. He's like, hey, I've written you lots of letters. They're mostly in the Bible, right? Yeah. And I have good things to say. And I would like to point you to this opinion that I have that Jesus is good and you should like him and be part of his family.
Yes.
And also, if you need an example of this, just do what I do or do what my companions do. Right. It's virtue signaling 101. I am a huge fan of virtue signaling. It's always bothered me how everybody hates it because I love it and I think it's how we all learned Christianity.
No, I really like this perspective because, I do get, there is that type of person on the internet who tries to make themselves look good for their own sake. But on the flip side, let's go back to the Taylor punting a kitten thing. And I know you. I have seen this happen. People want to know if the priest who knows you is for or against punting kittens.
The kitten had it coming.
Yeah. And they need to know that the cat deserves it. And that's where the church stands.
Do cats have souls? Really? No.
Okay, we're going to get out of this metaphor and just say that, we do want our spiritual leaders or people who we look up to call out bad things or to say what is good. It's sometimes important to signal virtue. There's a good place for that. And yeah, sometimes people do it just for their own ego and pride, but other times, and like you said, we as Christians are supposed to be upstanding members of society as much as society conforms with, the Christian ethic and stuff, so that we don't bring scandal to people. So if a bunch of Christians don't call out the fact that Taylor is shooting kittens out of a cannon into a group of puppy dogs, then
soft landing. Soft landing.
Soft landing. It's important. It's important for the church to say, this is bad. We see that it's bad, and it should be better. And this is how you are better. That's an important part of Christian living.
Right. And so I think there's only one other, if people are listening and they've been told their whole life that virtue signaling is bad. Maybe there are some people who have just been hiding with this idea for a long time. It's just always bothered me and I never knew why until I was just sitting around and I was like, Paul literally said these things. And the only other criticism that people could have is a lot when I was looking up the definition of virtue signaling, a lot of people are like, it's disingenuous virtue signaling.
Okay.
For example, people saying, hey, you should get the vaccine who haven't gotten the vaccine. It's if you've gotten the vaccine and you think that that's a good idea and you want to share that with people, that's fine. If anything that you believe in, you should be sharing. Because if it's done good for you, does that mean that everybody's going to agree with you? No. But we do this all the time with it's virtue signaling if you say that somebody should be Catholic or become a better Catholic. It's that's what we're here for. That's what community's for. That's what leadership of the church is for. That's what ministry's for. That's what the Great Commission that every baptized person has received is for, so that we can help other people with this. But there could be the argument, it's disingenuous. Well, you know what's disingenuous? Me coming on here and saying hey, everybody, we should be praying more. But I'm not praying all that much. That could be seen as disingenuous. Or I have said so many things and it has not been a secret, whether it's in talks or whether it's on here, where it's I'm not good at this and I want to be better. If you want to be better, come with me,
Yeah.
And maybe not like Paul. There are some situations where it's look, I think I'm a good example in these very few issues. If you want to get better at those, follow me. Do what I do. There are others where it's I'm not there, but if you want to come with me, cool. Or there are tons of listeners who are holier and better than me, where it's like they help me out, right?
Yeah.
And like it can't like even if virtue signaling is disingenuous. There's this guy named Paul. I don't know if you've heard of him. The same guy that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
He said, "I am the chief among sinners." So
Yeah.
he holds these two things. He holds these two things together at once. And it's like how I've built my entire ministry, because I had this realization 10 years ago. Paul, the same guy, can say, do what I do, follow me. If you want to be a good Catholic, do the things that I do, listen to things that I have to say. Also, I am the chief among sinners, and I'm a failure, and I need God, and I'm still working out this thorn in my flesh. Like, it can't be disingenuous. Virtue signaling is good in every example.
Well, I mean, that's really important because we have two things are at work here. Sometimes there's this attitude that a Christian can only speak if they are perfect. And that's not just among non-believers.
We'd all sound like Joseph.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My homilies would be a lot shorter.
Thank God.
But also, we have this idea that to be living the Christian life, you have to be utterly sinless. And that's not really living the Christian life is a sinner accepting God's mercy. That's how you become holy. So a key part of that is that you are a sinner. And also, like, if you're going to point out, like, this is disingenuous or you don't mean this, like, kind of what you said. I preach all the time about stuff that I'm bad at. And maybe my perspective is like, hey, if you don't do these good things, your life will be terrible, like mine was in this instance or that instance, right? Something about that actually helps us learn about holiness in a weird sort of way. God brings good out of our mistakes by teaching us stuff. So yeah, and like I said, is there like the really snobbish person who doesn't actually care about the virtue they're signaling and just wants to make themselves feel better? And is that bad? Sure. And then my final point is that it's one of these like overused words. So like if I go around and like, this is a delicious milkshake, and like, you are virtue signaling about the milkshake, it's like, guys, does this
You're
word
an idiot.
does this word mean anything anymore? Or are you just saying buzzwords? Are you just pointing out things in the room and calling them virtue signaling? Like
I love virtue signaling.
Yeah.
I love all of our Anchorman references.
Yes.
All right. Well, I just wanted to. I've been holding this in for too long, and I just wanted to let everyone in the world know that I'm a huge fan of virtue signaling, and I think all of us Catholics should be doing it and living out the Great Commission through virtue signaling. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Hey, you. Hope you're enjoying today's show. I know that I am. And stay tuned, because this next segment is quite the dealio. But before we got there, I wanted to let you guys know that Forte Catholic is a nonprofit. I do this full time, creating this show, creating all kinds of other things on the old internet, helping a bunch of other Catholic creators create their shows as well by producing 20 other Catholic podcasts. If you want to support a Catholic ministry that brings the joy of the gospel to people wherever they are, in person or online, head on over to fortecatholic.com/donate to give today. You can give one time, you can give monthly. That would be a huge help for us, and it is all tax deductible and counts as your tithing, because we're a Catholic nonprofit organization. It's right with God and it's right with the government. What more do you need? fortecatholic.com/donate. Thanks. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Stroll, and that is Father Anthony Sciarappa. And there are certain segments that I have to save for the priest.
Yes.
So there have been. I love sharing when like things go wrong, or it's like silly things that happen in Mass. I share those a lot on the show because they bring me so much joy. Where it's like, this is the source and summit of our faith, and also the source and summit of so much comedy that it's unbelievable. So one thing that I was thinking about the other day when I was in Mass is the priest was talking about like how we are all the bride of Christ. And I've talked before, like that's just, I mean, God is God and he's always right, but I've just never understood that. Like, how am I supposed to be the bride? And then I was like, well, I'm going to talk to Father Anthony about this. And as I was thinking, like, what can we talk about? Because my first thought was, like, you say I'm a bride, priest, Father, our good pastor here locally. But if I wore an all-white flowing dress, you'd have something to say about it. And I'm like, I'm just trying to be a bride, man. Like, I don't know what you want from me.
Yes, you know what I would say, Taylor? You look beautiful today. I'm glad you got dressed up for Sunday Mass. You respected our Lord by putting on your Sunday's finest.
Which
That is what I would say.
I haven't wore my Sunday's Finest in 15 years, so this would be a step up. So it's just the whole like bride of Christ thing. And then I was thinking about like, oh, I'm going to talk to Father Anthony about this.
Okay.
So I will ask you this question. Are you always the bride of Christ?
So it's a little bit weird. I mean, yes, me as a Christian, as a part of the church, I am a bride of Christ. Yes.
Okay. And when you celebrate Mass, who are you?
I am in the person of Christ. So I'm functioning in a different sort of way then, yes.
Do you see any problem here?
Are you calling me a spiritual crossdresser?
Yeah. I mean, like, because two things. You're the only one that can get away with wearing a dress at Mass. You've done it for years and nobody said anything. So you are the bride of Christ, but you are also in the person of Christ. So is now Christ the bride of Christ cross-dressing? I'm very confused by the whole thing.
So I'm going to introduce you to a brand new concept. You might not have heard about this one before, Taylor.
Logic.
No. Logic is good. You're pretty good at logic. What you're bad at is something called metaphor. These are imperfect images that help us get at a truth. And while every metaphor talks about something similar, ultimately what is dissimilar is more, right? So it's getting a little piece of this. So the idea of being a bride of Christ is that ultimately we are receptive to the actions of Jesus Christ, the saving action of him. He's the one who saves us. And don't get too hung up on like, yes, the receptivity does not mean a passiveness. It doesn't mean that Jesus just like stomps all over you or anything like an abusive husband. That's not what this is about at all. There's actually a very kind of active role in receptivity, but that's a whole nother podcast. But the idea is that Christ is married to us spiritually. This is a metaphor. It's not literal.
I don't know. I think pretty literally. So when somebody tells me I'm the bride of Christ, I start thinking about the practicals, and no one likes the practical applications of this.
Because you're doing it wrong. That being said, the way your brain works makes a lot of things more funny than they actually are. So that's a source of joy.
Which is, I mean, so many people would like scoff at me for finding joy in the Mass, but I think it's hilarious. So many things that happen in Mass are hilarious. So I think one of the things that like perspectives that I often take in Mass is every now and then I like to step back and be like, okay, like I've been in the church my entire life. I've been around the church. I've been in thousands of Masses. Like, I like to take myself out of the situation and be like, what would a guest think? I grew up with a lot of non-denominational friends, Baptists, Protestants, and they would come to Mass with me and like, I never realized how weird some of the stuff that we do is. A lot of it makes sense. Reading the readings makes sense. Turning bread into God, a little more thought has to be put into that.
Yeah.
But there was a new one that there is something it is an old trope that we all say these written prayers without thinking about them, and how it's like a good practice to like think about these prayers that we're praying.
Yeah.
So I was trying to do that during the creed the other day, and I got all the way to the end. I was actually praying the creed. It's a beautiful prayer if we actually pray it instead of just like, this is what I believe. Hello. Oh, you do too? And you do too? Everyone in here? What a proclamation. Is this evangelization? No, it's supposed to be a prayer. And I was trying to pray through it, and then it hit me. It just hit me. Like, what if I'm standing next to my non-denominational best friend, and we get to the end of the creed, and we all go completely straight face, not even think about it. I look forward to the resurrection of the dead. It's like, what? What did you just say? There's all these shows and video games all about the zombie apocalypse. It's not good. It's not good. And we're just like, I look forward to this. I'm not just prepared for it. I'm not just ready. I am looking forward to it like it's a long look forward to vacation.
Now, I think you should give your Protestant friends a little bit more credit. They probably also look forward to the resurrection of the dead because they understand the whole resurrection concept. But to a non-believer, super weird. Why are you excited about the end of the world when people come back from the dead? I shoot those dead coming back to life people in Call of Duty. What's going on here? Yes, I think that would strike them as weird.
And then it kept going, where I was now imagining I'm Catholic again in my head. I'm not my Protestant friend. And I'm like, do all these people actually believe this? Because I think if an undead arm reached out of the ground of the altar at that point, I don't think they'd be looking forward to it anymore. I think they'd be like,
surprise!
Get out! I'm out of here. So another weird thought. But that's some weird thoughts on the side of me being a layperson. You haven't stood in a pew in forever, as we learned when our good friend Aaron Weber came on, the comedian, Catholic comedian. We learned that you only became a priest because you wanted to sit in the good chair.
Yeah, the pews are super uncomfortable. I don't know how you guys do it. I was sick of it, so I became a priest.
So you did become a priest, and there are also some silly things that happen on the priest side of things, and mostly it's just you flubbing things.
Yes.
So without you knowing it, one of the minions of the show, who's very helpful for the show, who's a friend of yours, you actually know them as well, and they were like, can I send this to Father Anthony, or are you going to use it on the show? And I was like, you better not send it to Father Anthony, because we are 100% doing this on the show. Without you even knowing that, you're a glutton for punishment. You sent me another video. So we're going to start with your video because you know what's coming. And then we'll get to the video that our friend sent.
Oh, good. Good.
So here we go. This is a video of you at Mass, I believe, yesterday.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Let us pray. O God, whose Son today ascended to the heavens as the apostles looked on,
Sing like a sheep.
grant, we pray, that in accordance with his promise, we may be worthy for him to live with us always on earth, and we live with him in...
Huh?
We may be worthy for him to live with us always on earth, and we with him in heaven, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever.
They actually are. The congregation was laughing at me.
100% they're laughing, and then you just bow and walk back like nothing happened? What are you doing?
Can I explain to you my mindset, the background to this event?
You can't. It's not just that you can. You have to. It's a requirement, because that is the most insane thing I've ever seen a priest do during Mass. No, that's not true. Yes. But it's top 5.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I am a very fallible human being. I make mistakes. At Mass, this is a thing that happens. But you have forever changed the way I have mistakes. Before it's like, you know what, I made a mistake, let's move on. Now it's like, I made a mistake, Taylor's gonna love this. It's literally what goes through my brain. Whenever I mess up a word, it's literally like, you know what? This might be a mistake, and it might ruin Mass for some people, but it'll bring joy to Taylor. I'm not even kidding. That goes through my mind every time.
Oh, okay, that makes me so happy. I have never been more proud of myself. And I have kids. True. I've had a wedding. I've done amazing things. I've never been more proud than you admitting that, because you have thought it for years and you were scared to admit it. You finally did.
No. I've been scared. But the thing is, after the first time you ambushed me with my ridiculous mistake, every time I go to Mass, and it's now like a lot of them are on YouTube now. So now I'm like aware there's a chance Taylor won't see it because he doesn't watch Mass, but his wife may because she's very holy. Or apparently you have all these underground agents who watch my Mass. 100%. Right?
There are just people that listen to the show that heard that last time when you started Mass incorrectly, which should be that's like me and Allison messing up the beginning of the show last week. Yes. So it happens. Like, we didn't start the show for 2.5 minutes because we were just laughing and stumbling over each other. It's the worst intro ever, 239 episodes in, and you're hundreds of, if not thousands of Masses in. Yeah. And you're just like, let us pray. It's like, that's not how we start.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so it was, in Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania, we celebrate the Ascension Mass on Thursday. Most places in the country, they move it to Sunday. Okay?
Ascension Thursday, celebrated on Sunday. That's like when they're like, this playoff on Thanksgiving, the NFL's like, here's your Monday night football game, or like, it's Thursday morning.
Yeah, exactly. So we keep it on Thursday. And so the Vigil Mass was Wednesday night when this event occurred. And it was weird having a evening Mass in the middle of the day, because the entire rest of the day I had meetings, I was doing anointings, like I was just working. So my brain was a little wasn't as focused as I normally am before Mass. And so my brain was a little messy. On top of that, when the new translation of all the prayers came out, 10 years ago, the idea was to make them more literal and more accurate to the Latin they were written in. Latin grammar is very different than English grammar. So a lot of times there's these weird run-on sentences and stuff. And if you don't look at some of the prayers beforehand and you read it like it's going to be a normal sentence, you'll mess up. So I had not really looked at the prayers before Mass. And I chant all the time. So I was like, I'll just, do it. And it wasn't working, Taylor. It wasn't working.
We saw that. We all heard. We were all here.
Also, as far as my chanting goals are to, whenever I chant well, for me that means fine. That means nobody notices that I chanted. They're like, whatever, it's chanting. That's like the high point for me. The low point, and I don't want to go lower than this point, is, well, that wasn't very good, but a lot of priests are worse than him, so fine.
Well,
okay?
I just want to break it to you. You went lower than that low point today.
Exactly. I went to the point I never want to go to, where I've made Mass less reverent because I chanted, right? So
it was unbelievable how quickly you made that decision.
Yes.
You went from buying like a sheep to talking like an Anthony. It was the craziest thing in the world.
It was. So yeah. So my voice I was not in good voice that day, and it just messed up. And then, you know what I really enjoyed? I was really happy that everyone laughed.
Oh,
and this actually...
It made me so happy hearing that I'm not the only crazy person that actually enjoys funny things.
Right. But that told me a lot of things. Like, these people, I've been there for 2.5 years. They know me. They're not mad at this. They find, Father Anthony made a mistake. It's very silly. We laughed. You know what would have been way worse? If there was silence.
Gasps.
Or gasping. Or crying. Or people leaving the church.
Let's be clear. If I was there, I would have been crying, but not the way that I would have been done. I just been done. It was so great, and I loved your buying. I will never forget that. Every time a priest chants, I'll think, oh God, we thank you for giving us bread. And then
a little awkward vibrato in there.
And then just stopping. You're going back to metaphors. You're going back to you're the sheep. You're the lamb of God in Persona Christi. But it doesn't stop there. I've got another one sent by the Minion. This is from JP, our good friend JP.
Oh, JP, you're in trouble.
He found this because he went to a random Mass with you. And let me find it. Here it is. All right, you don't know what this is.
No.
I said I have a clip of you messing up, and apparently it happens so often that you didn't remember which one that I had.
Right, I don't remember this one. I was like, I thought you meant for sure the one I just did, but I don't know what's coming next.
No. This goes back a little bit longer. So here we go. Are you ready for this? The grand reveal.
No, but do it anyway.
Here we go.
Now the action of prayer and the truth of our hearts. And it's very easy to fall into this. And sometimes, perhaps it's not even our fault. That's the way that the faith was presented to us.
What did you say there? What did you say there, Father Anthony?
I can't believe this.
You are turning red. For those not watching on YouTube, he went into this segment to have good fun, and he knew the one that he was coming that he came with. He's not embarrassed about. He is red as my background right now.
Okay, because I remember this moment.
They didn't laugh at this one.
No. So instead of saying fault, I definitely said fart.
Yeah, right after you said crap.
Yeah.
Sometimes this crap isn't our fart. And that was the funniest thing you've ever said, ever.
I don't remember saying, it was one of those things where I stumbled. Instead of catching myself, I just fell right on my face. So I was like, this is one of those things where it's like, well, people are actually, I'm saying important stuff now, right? This is, not that the prayers aren't important, but no one listens to those.
You're not bag anymore. You're actually talking.
Yeah, just talking, right? And I try to put a lot into the homily. And I know people are lasered in on me and everything, so I didn't want to distract them by acknowledging what I had said. A lot of times when you make a mistake, you just go through it. People forget about it in a few seconds.
Yeah, because I'm sitting in the congregation did he just say fart? I'm not sure if I heard what I heard.
But hopefully I keep going. You're like, oh, I want to listen to the rest of it, right? And you know this because you give talks. Sometimes when you're giving talks, it's almost like your brain is in a different time zone. So you think of 1,000 things in a second. That's what happens to me.
Oh, no, I'm good at my job.
Come on. This definitely happens to anyone who's public speaking.
Not anymore. Maybe 13 years ago.
Shut up. So I thought oh no, I messed up. The thought Taylor would think that's very funny.
You know what you should have done? You should have started chanting. do the opposite of the other one.
Just chant the rest of my home.
Sometimes this crap isn't our fart.
His
But the
Father Anthony's
Lord
stroking
has
out.
said that we should all live for him.
But literally, I was like, you know what? There's no way he catches this because it's just a quick thing. We'll go on. And the fact that someone caught it and brought it to your attention is amazing.
clipped it
and
out.
JP, I hate you.
Oh, it's the best. So we got to wrap up. But here's my final question: because you admitted that you know that I'm listening or someone is listening for me at all times. Does that pressure make you mess up more, or were you messing up this much before we were live streaming everything? Does that pressure make you mess up more, or are you better at your job because I'm always watching?
I think I'm just more aware of my mess ups now. Like it's funny. I say a lot of masses. Most of the time, I don't mess up, but apparently, so I don't feel more pressure. I'm there to say mass, to do a good job as a priest. But whenever I do mess up, I become very aware of it immediately.
Well, I just want to let you know that whenever you mess up, that sometimes that crap hit in your fart. So know, we could just move forward with this. No matter what you said, I was going to keep doing it. This is a theme. If you watch Father Anthony's Mass, it's a trick to get people to watch Mass. Watch the Mass.
It's great.
Let me know. Clip it out for me, and we will share it the next time Father Anthony is on. I'm Taylor Stroll. That's Father Anthony. You're listening to Forte Catholic. Subscribe on YouTube wherever you listen to podcasts. I'll be back next week. See ya. Oh man, it was so great. You were so cool with the segment until you heard that and you just went beet red.
Because like messing up chanting, whatever. Saying fart.
Right after you said crap. Sometimes this crap isn't our fart.
That was great. That was great content. I love it.
Oh man.